G'day, I'm Peter Anthony. Welcome to Growth Tales. Beata Gillette is a growth architect. Expect to learn the 3 stages of business growth, the surprising role of AI in business growth today, and how spirituality impacts business. Here's Beata's story. G'day, Beata. You're a growth architect. In fact, one of the world's leading and most successful growth architects. I'm just curious, what is a growth architect?
Never one to hold back, Peter. Let's just ask the tough questions. Yeah, so a growth architect is somebody who literally helps people architecting growth in 3 different categories. So when you look at business growth, the people are either in the building phase where they build the model and they figure out, what it is and who they're selling to. They're in the growth phase when they know what it is and they need to actually grow it, lead generation, marketing, sales, or they're in the scale phase, which is when they need to make themselves obsolete. And I found that most business consultants or coaches are very specific about one thing, and nobody ever goes to 30,000 feet. So as the growth architect, I take people on their plane to 30,000 feet. We map out the terrain. We look at the airports. We map out the journey, and then we figure out how to land and where to land first.
Okay. So it starts with an idea, I'm imagining. If I were to grow a business, I've got an idea, or I've got a product, I've got something that has a value proposition, something that's valuable to a particular group of people. Is that where it starts, or do you start working with businesses after they're past that stage?
Typically, I think that you need to have some sort of an idea. I'm not the person that you come to when you say, I've wondered on whether or not I should start a business, and I could do social media, I could do marketing, I could do a shoe polish business, a roofing business, or maybe solar installation. People typically come to me when they say, I've had this idea about building an AI-powered resume review process for people that hire people that don't have the time to look through 300 resumes. What do you think? That I can then build the model, help them to figure out what the growth piece is, and then eventually scale. And a business like that is probably extremely sellable because it solves one very particular problem that's no competition with other companies. So that is a business I would set up for acquisition.
Okay. So an organization or a group could come to you with that idea before it's a business, if you like.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, they could do that, or they come to me when it's already a business.
Okay. And as a growth architect, you're thinking about what? Do you help them find funding as well for that idea?
I'm not really specialized in the funding piece of it. I certainly, if I have connections, I'll be making introductions, but that's not my specialty. I think there's people that are much more qualified in think tanks and private investment and equity type of companies. My piece really is the strategy and helping people figure out how do we build it? What are we actually building? How do we talk about it? Who are we targeting? Why are these people actually buying these products and services? And then how do I scale the whole thing? And what do I do with it? And how do I not blow up my life in the process?
And blow everything else up in the process. So what would you say, like in the businesses that you've met, the people that you've met at that stage? I'm sure you've met people with great ideas and people with not so great ideas. What would be, like, say, an idea or a couple of ideas that you've had people come to you with that you think that's got no chance whatsoever? That's like, don't even bother thinking about that.
Actually, one of these ideas was my idea. I thought about... Oops.
So you were your own client, right?
I was my own client. I had this what I thought was absolutely brilliant idea. Why don't we take, because I come from photography, all these coffee table books that cost so much money and that are sitting on these coffee tables. Why don't we take all these coffee table books and transfer them into ebooks? So that way you could sit on your couch with your large iPad and you can literally scroll through all these great photographs. Peter, when was the last time somebody came to your house and saw your iPad on the coffee table and said, hey, can I look through your coffee table books?
Plus, it doesn't quite match I remember we had a designer come to the house one time about 7 or 8 years ago, and he wanted to create what he called the ambience of the space. Right. And he had all these different ideas about where things were placed. And one of the things I remember is he had this huge key that he wanted to leave on a table to create ambience. I thought it was crazy, right?
Okay.
but we did it. We went ahead with it, and it looked great. I mean, the house would look. And sometimes a coffee table book is meant, I guess, more for a just for the how it looks rather than to actually its functionality. I'm imagining. Yeah.
Well, I think that in this particular business, and to answer the question, it really is about sometimes you think something makes a lot of sense to you,
Yeah.
but the
Yeah.
the litmus test is if what you're trying to do hasn't been done before, either
Yes.
everybody else is stupid or
Yeah.
you are.
Yeah. That's right. And maybe the only smart person in the room, but if you want to make money, if you want to monetize an idea, it's worthwhile to have an audience or customers for what it is that you're selling.
Product market fit, as we
Yeah.
refer to it. Yeah. So I
Yeah.
thought, so that was one example where I thought that was really absolutely, I thought it was brilliant. And then the second piece about it is that I realized that to sell a product that's $1 or $2.99 or $9.99, it needs as much energy and effort as it does if we're selling a $10,000 coaching program or consulting
Yes.
program. And
Yeah.
so why would I go in a business where I then have to do this over and over and over and over and over again versus just finding something that makes me more money in a much shorter amount of time. So that really
Okay.
was one of the things that I learned about this. And another really terrible idea that somebody came to me with was when they said that they wanted she had it was a woman who had, I mean, the idea itself was beautiful. She had this overall that was very expensive and very complicated, and she wanted this overall to be produced and manufactured and then raise money for to help women that are experiencing homelessness to get them into to help them financially or through whatever program. And when she told me about this, I said, you got this all wrong. The idea is you are going to create a program where women can learn how to sew themselves. So
Ah.
that is the reentry program out
Ah.
of
Okay.
homelessness into the market. And so she ran a very successful pilot program on that, and only to realize now that we do need venture capital funding because the people that are in, especially in Los Angeles, managing homelessness are people that work in a broken system that
Yeah.
creates this problem,
Hmm.
that then with a broken system that creates broken processes and system and also breaks people to
Hmm.
fix it, which does not work. So I said we need to come with money from the outside of people who actually know how to fix problem, not from the people that created the problem in the first place, and
Yeah. That
try
makes
to give
sense.
them something to fix it because it's just not going to work. So
Not
that's
going to
how
work.
I look at it. Is I look at the idea, I look at the market, I look at the viability, I look at the differentiation factor. I had somebody, a podcast host, that came to me and I talked to him, and then he says, well, I've always thought about maybe creating a podcast hub for a series of inspired podcasts that are all in one particular category. And I said, that's the idea. The idea is not how do we monetize your one podcast. The
Yeah.
idea is how do we monetize podcast hosts that look like you in this particular category and
Hmm.
create, a network that is then known for podcast hosts in all different categories that look like you and make that a thing. That's a much better idea and that'll get
Yeah.
funding.
Yeah. Because I guess they've all got the same audience. Is that
Hmm.
what you were thinking? Like
Hmm.
each, if they're all in the same, like just say, for example, if they're all
Black,
podcasts,
Asian,
like,
Hispanic.
or if they're all on, say, NFL football, for
Yeah.
example, and there might be, and you are putting all those podcasts together, so it's easy to pick from them, if you like. If I'm an NFL football fan, for example, yeah,
Yeah, something
yeah,
like that, or it could be very specific to a particular ethnicity. It could be the Korean broadcast network. So,
yeah,
or it could be for Black people
yeah,
that
yeah,
then say how Black people handle money, how Black people handle relationships, how Black people
yeah,
handling investments, and not to be discriminatory, but to say there are nuances What applies to me as a white woman does not necessarily have to apply to somebody who does not look like me, and somebody who has that particular ethnicity can speak about this probably a much more knowledgeable than I can. So why not make that your advantage? Instead of trying to fit in with everybody else, you take the
Yeah.
differentiation factor and you make that the hero.
Yes. And niche down into that
Mm-hmm.
particular piece. So,
Mm-hmm.
what are some of the best ideas? We talked about some of the worst. What are some of the best ideas or best proposals that have been pitched to you as a growth architect?
I think that a great idea that I've always loved was a woman that was a data scientist, and she came and she had this idea on how to build a framework for retail search engines for online shopping, shopping carts that
Okay.
was based on ethical AI. So when like when you go shopping to on Amazon, that it makes automatic recommendations
Yes. Yeah.
to all kinds of other things. So that's when you so that is powered by AI now. And so she wanted to do it in an ethical way so that there is no bias. And when we put this program together for her on how she even can explain this to somebody in language that you and I can understand without having to be a data scientist, she turned around and closed a $50,000 job
Wow.
the following week. So those types of things are really amazing. Or I had a tutor who wanted to take really online tutoring to a whole new level, which originally first started during COVID when the in-person tutoring went to online tutoring. And
Yeah.
then he made this a multi-million-dollar business because the accessibility and then allowing people that are retired teachers or that are teachers that have to substitute their income. And they could be anywhere. They could be in Ohio. I mean, calculus is calculus is calculus,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and grammar is grammar. So they could be anywhere in the country and provide services to children in other places. So I thought that was a wonderful idea, and I really loved that.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I know. I'm a swimmer, as you know, an ocean swimmer, and there are online platforms now for sport where you can video yourself, like you can take a video of yourself swimming if you like, and you can send the video to a swimming coach, and the coach could be in Denmark, they could be in China, they could be anywhere in the world. It doesn't really matter, and they send you back like a coaching program or tips on how you can swim faster. It's the same for many other sports, like in that environment. I love that idea because one of the great things that technology has done is it's broken down geography. It doesn't matter where you live. Like this podcast now, we're in completely different countries and different time zones, yet we can share a conversation. So
Hmm.
that's one big avenue technology has opened up. I'm curious too about like stage two you mentioned in your growth strategy is the growth stage. Is that right? The second
Hmm.
stage? Yeah.
Yeah, so
So
once you know what you're doing and why
yeah,
you're
well,
doing it
yeah,
and who you're doing it for, then we
yeah, that's
kind of
right.
need to put the offer out and build our business and build the
Okay.
sales and bring people into our model and then start making some money. And
Okay.
in that particular part, that's really where we're mapping out how do we go about this. And one of the challenges I've seen, Peter, and I know you've seen this in your work as well, is that there you know, really since we got into COVID and then how we got out of COVID and the economy and this, every moment you think you got it figured out,
Yeah.
there's another massive market change.
Mm, mm.
And then you have to go back to the drawing board and say, this doesn't work at all. And I'm going to give you an example. So, when we went into COVID, we were all in diversity, equity, inclusion. It was everywhere. There were
Yeah.
women leadership programs, diversity leadership programs, neurodiversity, inclusion. There were chief diversity officers. I mean, it was everywhere. And we changed the laws. People had to by law, especially in California, gasp to 10 board directors, one person that was a woman, which was shocking for many people. And now this whole thing is just completely gone. I mean, nobody talks about it. So if you were in diversity, equity, and inclusion, you had programs, your business is is dead
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
There's nothing. So you also have to constantly look at measuring what you do against what the marketplace is doing. That's what we
Mm,
do in the second part. And I'm doing a lot of that right now because a lot of people go like, I don't understand why what I've done doesn't work anymore. I'm like, well, the market conditions have changed. I mean,
mm,
especially here in the United States, when you look at the political climate and you look at what people are talking about and you look at what media serves to the average person and you look at how people respond to what the media serves to the average person, that gives you a pulse of what they're worried about. And you have to really pay attention to, is the language you're using today the exact language your clients are also still using?
mm,
Because if the problem or the assumption of my problem has changed, but I still talk about it in the same way, I have a mismatch. I'm going to give you another example. So, when I go into more of a creative environment and I talk to people that really like to be in whatever photography, writing, anything that has a little bit more creativity to it. When I say in my headline, do you want to make more money? I repel them. If I talk to a 25-year-old male who's just out of college and I say, do you want to make more money? They're going to be all over it. A
mm.
creative will say, Beate, that's all nice. And you just need to show me how to find more clients. That's all I want.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, finding more clients is the equivalent of making more money,
Yes.
but
Yes.
that's not the words that they're using.
Yeah.
So if a simple word mismatch like this in your marketing or advertising happens, people will say things to you, well, there's something, yeah, I get it, something there, but I'm just not ready yet. And it's because
Mm.
they know you know what you're doing, but you're just about missing that. And that's what people need to really pay attention to right now in the growth phase.
So, getting a more intimate relationship with the customer or the client, if you like,
Yeah.
understanding more about what they're looking for and uniquely deliver that to them so that they're thinking,
Or
hey, these
ask
guys,
AI.
yeah, yeah, ask AI, yeah. So, and I'm thinking as a client, I'm thinking these guys get me. This organization, this company, this provider, they get me. They understand what I'm looking for, and then I'm willing to engage or willing to buy. Is that how it works?
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, I now have gone literally to go to ChatGPT or whatever AI platform you're using, and
yeah,
I ask, tell
yeah.
me what a small business in America is asking about in forums such as Reddit, Quora, or whatever, or on LinkedIn. What
Right.
are what are the articles that get the most engagement? What are the exact questions? That'll give you a
I,
pretty good idea.
I love that idea. I mean, I'm a embrace AI hugely. I love currently I'm using Google Gemini, and I love how it has personas. You can ask it to think like a you can ask them to think a particular way. Like as a podcast host, I was interviewing an expert in imposter syndrome, and she was a psychologist and an actress, and she was living in Poland. And I asked AI. I said, "Look, think like a podcast host. Can you give me an understanding of what sort of questions I might ask an actress who's also a psychologist on the topic of imposter syndrome?" And it gave me some really great questions to ask, right? Because I didn't know either. I'm not a psychologist and I'm not an actress or an expert in imposter syndrome. So I had to have some understanding. I love how it works in personas, but I didn't think you could ask it, hey, could you tell me what small business owners are looking at in Reddit, for example? Or what are they searching for on YouTube on on these topics?
Mhm.
And that's a great idea. That's a great tip. I like that. I like that idea a lot. You can
Yeah,
get
you'll
that
be you
granular
you'll be
now.
using it yourself. This alone was the was
Of course
worth.
I will. Of course I will. This is all about me, Beata. Remember, it's all about.
Well, and we just happen to share it with your audience, but
I happen to.
that's truly where this is at,
Yeah,
is that
yeah,
we constantly wreck our brain and just go like, where. The question is always how. It all already everything already exists. So you
yeah.
you got to shift out of the can I do it, into the
Exactly.
question, how can I do it and where can I find the answer to that? Because if I need to ask myself, is my positioning spot on, or what would somebody think about when they go to my website? Tell you, ask AI.
Yes. Yeah.
Sometimes I write, especially when I write responses where I'm not sure if my tone is right. I said, well, analyze the tone of this message. And it
Yeah.
says, you sound like a complainer.
You're planning too much.
It says, well, it sounds defensive. Well, it says it's you sound defensive, and I'm like, I'm
Oh,
not
okay. Okay.
defensive. I'm upset.
Yeah, but it's interesting then because you think it's then you start getting to impressions. You think I wasn't being defensive; I was being upset, and you think, well, it's being received as offended. I was just upset. It's bizarre how that works sometimes, doesn't it? So
Well,
AI
but
can
that's
be
why
like
you
a
ask, because if
yeah,
we knew everything about ourselves and how we come across, the perception of others of us supersede our perception of ourselves.
it does. Particularly when you're talking now about like growing, you're thinking, well, it doesn't really matter what I think about myself or what I think about the product. That's almost irrelevant. It's what my target consumers are thinking or how they resonate with this brand proposition or this value proposition. Yeah, rather than what it doesn't matter what I think really, does it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really the point. So if you can take this objectivity and look at what you do or who you are with curiosity versus with ego and ownership, and say,
Yeah.
well, if this is a brand and I represent the brand, what does it need to be to meet
Yeah.
the demand of this person, and then you design that, and then you find the tools that will allow you to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, you used an interesting word there, Beata, which I was going to ask you about, which was ego. Because I'm imagining a lot of entrepreneurs that are coming to you, I'm imagining have a fairly large ego, or have an ego, let's put it that way, because they're thinking that they can change the world or they can change a market in a particular way. Do you find sometimes their ego gets in the way because they think they know more than the market does about the product or about how it's being received by a market? Is ego ever a problem?
Well, just look at Peter Thiel. And
Yeah, yeah,
that was the co-founder of PayPal, probably one of the richest men in the world right now. Certainly the most successful tech entrepreneur we've ever seen, who's predicted Facebook, Airbnb, Spotify, and has been a major early round investor in all of these places. Peter Thiel basically, talk about an ego, says that we should just get rid of governments and give governance to technology companies, because they reach so many people and they can influence them, that all the decision making should be left up to people like him. Yeah.
slightly
Yeah.
dangerous
I
proposition, isn't
say
it?
some entrepreneurs, especially if they're successful, do have a very large ego. But
Yeah,
this goes back to some of the things that you talk about, also servant leadership, and
yeah,
um, being really clear about what you're doing it for. Princess Leia
yes,
always comes to mind when she says to Han Solo, if money is all you want, money shall be all you get. So if
yeah,
money and power is all you want, then you can manifest that and you can make that happen, no question. I don't find that very desirable if pretty much 99% of the world would hate me and think I'm an absolute jerk. I
yeah,
prefer to have people around me that I can enjoy, that I want to
yeah.
hang out with, when my life is not a consistent string of conflict.
Yes, yes. I'm sure you have met people. I have certainly met people like these. Some of the private equity people that I've met and I've dealt with,
Mm,
they're not concerned at all about being disliked or it's almost a badge. It doesn't
hmm
it doesn't really matter, which is fine. If you don't want to have relationships with people, that's fine. But you think when that ego extends into thinking that you know the market better than the market does,
Yeah, and I think that in business building, or, as we go to the third part in scaling your business, this is really the decision that you need to make for yourself. And
yeah,
I'm certainly not going to be in judgment of that. I typically don't work with people like that, because I'm impact driven, and for me it's more important to share the information, to share the shortcuts, to make the
yeah,
impact versus controlling people, because I believe that the universe, one source, is ultimately good and there's enough for everybody. I don't need to be. I'm probably smarter than some people, but am I the best person out there? I don't know, but I'm
yeah,
certainly going to do the best I can to provide the
yeah,
most I can to people that find what I do interesting. But that's a decision that you make, and I find that the older and wiser I get, and thank God I feel like I'm getting wiser as that there is something different that becomes important. You're a father, I'm a mother, and we are now becoming more and more concerned about what does the world look like for our children. And I
Yeah.
just, became a grandmother a year ago. And now I look at, what do I want to do to make sure that my granddaughter has a world that's worthwhile living in,
Mm,
where she can have a wonderful and beautiful experience that continues. And that becomes more important for me than just having money.
mm.
I
Yeah.
can make that more important than something else.
Yes. It's interesting too. I'm just curious about whether you see like a spiritual aspect to this, like a spiritual aspect to the advice you're giving clients as a growth architect, or is it purely the balance sheet and these three steps?
This has been, if you would have asked me this, and you and I spoke, a couple months ago, that was a little bit different because I
Yeah.
was all about German logic, strategy,
Yeah.
one,
Yeah.
two, three, four, five, scaling processes. And then I went on a very, very deep spiritual journey at the end of last year. And I had my butt kicked. And in a really intense way, where I had to look at my life from a different perspective that I had avoided very successfully for many, many, many years.
Mm,
And what I learned is that when for those of us who've been traumatized as a child, which what's like 90% of everybody, where dad did this, mom did this, abuse, yelling, mental, physical, somebody mistreated you, everybody has their own journey. And we are taught forgive, 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 but we never really deal with the trauma, and we carry this wounded inner child with us in all of our business decision and our personal decisions. And because we are wounded, we're now looking at our children and our teams to give us something we didn't experience. And therefore, we are repeating this trauma in a different format over and over and over and over again. And there comes a point in our professional and personal development where you have to make a conscious choice and say, that's it. It stops here.
mm,
I'm healing myself. I'm forgiving those who did this, and I'm releasing my children from the obligation to give me something that I didn't have. It's a triple whammy. And I think that's why people avoid doing that. And that is where, to me, really the spirituality came in when I saw that my mother, the abuser, really was stuck as a 12-year-old in World War II, completely terrified and traumatized, and God knows what happened to her. And I have empathy for her, but she did what she did to me, and that was not okay. But
mm,
I had to come to terms with saying, I don't need to fix her. That's hers to fix if she chooses to. But I need to let this go because I cannot carry this any further. And I cannot have this be, you talked about, a guest you had, imposter syndrome,
yeah. Yeah.
or the need for being liked. I cannot carry this with me for the rest of my life because I was unable as a child to make my mother happy because she just cannot be made happy. And she's 90 and nothing's ever really changed. So that's, I think, where spirituality comes in. And hopefully it comes in for your listeners more early in their professional development, where you say,
Mm,
it is all connected. And the
yeah.
more aligned you are, the more successful you will be. Successful
Mm,
people all have a spiritual practice without
mm,
exception, if they have more than just money,
mm.
right?
Yeah.
So you step into
Yes.
that or you choose not to.
Yes. And I like that distinction there between successful people and people who just have money. Because we're not just talking about people that just have money. It's people that are successful in their lives. So they have money, they have the family, they have the relationships, have a spiritual connection, have a sense of meaning and purpose about what they're doing. So it's broader than just the money piece. That's only part of it. It makes most things easier, the money piece, once you reach a certain level. But then there's other pieces to be thinking about too. So how do you integrate? I mean, I love how you've just explained that as a personal journey. How do you integrate that into coaching someone or consulting with someone, like in terms of growing their business? Are you coaching them personally to encourage them to find more spirituality or meaning in their lives? Is that how it works?
Well, the way the practical application of this is to go deeper into why. Why
Yeah,
are you
yeah,
doing
yeah,
this?
yes.
So if somebody says, just need to make X amount of dollars so I can pay my bills. That's transactional business. That's not
Yeah.
connected to your clients. That's not connected to yourself. That's connected to the God called money. And
Mm.
that's a bumpy road. So
Yeah.
if you say, I am here to help people make decisions, I'm going to give you an example. So when I'm on a phone call, of course I need to sell products and services because I have bills to pay. But really my job as a consultant, as a coach, as a growth architect is to say, when you come to me, we need to answer 3 questions. Can you do this by yourself or not? That's a yes or no answer. If you've been doing this for 5 years and you're still doing the same thing, chances are if you're talking to me right now, you cannot. Okay, so we've established that. Then the second question is, am I the right person for you to help you
Mm.
to fix this?
Mm.
That is also a yes or a no answer.
Yeah.
And that's entirely up to you.
Mm.
And then the third question is, how urgent is it? And
How urgent
if
is
somebody who's on the phone call with me walks away with insights on these 3 questions, I've done my job, irrespective of what they choose. Because then they make either a deliberate choice to say, no, I cannot do this by myself, but I would like to continue to do it. Okay, good. You're
Mm.
not coachable. We
Yeah.
figured this out. May
Yeah.
may the force be with you. If you
Maybe I'm the wrong person for you. One of the
Well, that's
reasons
the second question. Yeah.
yeah, one of the reasons I really like making YouTube content and podcasts is so that people can see me. And one of the ways I like to think about it is, if you don't like me quickly. Like, let's not spend a couple of meetings together, an hour on a call or an hour and a half on a Zoom, and then you work out you don't like me. I'd rather you not like me quickly, because I'm not the guy for you. Let's not have that conversation to begin with. Do you know what I mean? That's
Right.
how I
And
think about it.
yes,
Yeah.
it's exactly what you're saying. Our job is to help people to figure out on whether or not we are right for them, on
Yes.
whether or not this is right for them, and whether or not it's the right time for them.
Yes.
And
Yes.
sometimes people drag their feet, or sometimes people know that they're not ready.
Yeah.
And they say, you know what? I got to really think about this. And internet marketing has polluted this space very, very badly, where your failure, if you can close somebody in 90 minutes on a
Yeah.
$25,000 program with
Yeah.
hardcore ethical persuasion sales techniques. I just don't
Yes.
think that that's
Mm. Yeah.
I mean, I don't really want to be the person. Don't get me wrong, I would love to sell in 90 minutes at $25,000 programs, not at the expense of feeling that I am closing someone. I need to feel, and this is the spiritual part that we were talking about. I want my clients to be convinced that they're helping their clients or customers with what they do. And they come from this heart centered approach to say, I want to attract who is right for this because I am
Yes.
clear what I'm doing it for.
Yes. Yes. It's really interesting. I've found, particularly over the past maybe 5 or 6 years, maybe decade, I've found when I'm in having coaching conversations with people, I often get insights and I have no idea where they came from, because I'm saying things or recommending things or noticing things that I have no idea where that came from. And oftentimes I think there's a spiritual dimension when you're in the coaching
Mm-hmm.
chair, if you're
Mm-hmm.
open to it,
Mm-hmm.
to and that spiritual dimension gives you the advice that this person needs, but you're the vessel or the vehicle, if you like, for that advice coming to that individual. And the
It's
more I'm
energy.
open to that, yeah, and the more I'm open to that, the more it happens, because it happens again and again and again and again. Like in the old days, I was very programmatic. It was very structured. Everything I was saying, everything I was doing was very structured. I could repeat the same thing again and again and again in workshops and in consulting sessions. As I've matured, I've opened up that space to allow that spiritual dimension to potentially talk to this person. So I'm potentially a vehicle that spiritual dimension is talking through, if you like. Does that make sense?
I actually, I that the way I describe this process is as crawling into their heads and
Yeah,
looking
yeah,
around. Because
yeah,
when you
yeah,
get permission to work with someone, always assume that all the puzzle pieces are already all in there, and they
yeah,
are. It's just that
yeah.
this person has a hard time assembling them.
Yes,
So
or finding them. Yeah, or finding them. Yeah, and finding them because it's interesting. I used to think I was teaching people things they didn't know. Now I'm thinking it's more. I'm helping them find what they already have. Like just shine the torch for them. Hey, it's over here. It's over there. You have this. Like you've got this.
I mean,
It's very
100%. I had a client, and she has this really fabulous idea where she's helping new coaches to create summits so they can
yeah,
start building their list and generating leads. And
yeah,
so, and she signed up for particular programs called the Signature Growth System. And this is where we take all the pieces of everything that she's ever done and ever thought of, and we
yeah,
assemble them into, here's the first, the second, the third, the fourth. Here's how we get them in. Here's what we teach them here. And we take literally everything she has, and it goes on a big whiteboard, and everything gets moved around. And so we go in the zone. At least I thought we are in the zone. I'm thinking we
yeah,
are in the zone.
yeah, yeah,
And I just ask her questions, and I'm moving things around, and then a couple hours later, voila, there it is. And then she just looked at me, and she says, she didn't know what to say. I said, are you all right? And I said, oh, I said, this is all your stuff. And she goes, it is, because I thought I was watching you work. I said, no, 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 no. I said, I was asking you questions, and you
yeah,
told me where everything is. All I
mm,
did is take the pieces that you told me about that were in your head, and then we were moving it around. That's
mm,
my super skill. But
yeah,
this
yeah.
is yours. She says, oh, it is mine. I said, yes. I said, I don't do summits. I said, you do. This is all your stuff. She says,
Yeah.
oh, so much better now.
Yeah, it's like she's got all the parts. You're just helping her find them and assemble them in the right order, or in an order that's going
Exactly.
to work. Because
Exactly,
there could
Peter.
be there could be two or three different ways it could work.
Yes,
Yes,
exactly.
yes. That's I love that idea. That we're on a similar journey in that respect, in terms of just
Hmm.
integrating that spiritual piece and that meaning and purpose piece. Because that's the real piece, really, isn't it? That's likely what they're really after, because they're not just really after the money. They're also really after a sense of purpose or meaning to leave the world better off than what it was without them being there, or leave it better off for their kids or for their grandchildren. And that's a lot more purpose and spirit than it is just pure money, isn't it?
That's kind of who
Yeah,
I work with. That's really
yeah,
who I work with. I
yeah,
don't know
yeah,
what other people's avatars are, but my avatar really is an impact driven entrepreneur, because I measure my impact with how
yeah.
much impact I help other people make.
Yes, I
So
like that.
it's not money centric. Obviously I want to get compensated for it, but
Yeah.
the main idea really is, and this woman with this program for the homeless, I don't charge her. I mentor her. And
Mm,
I mentor her because I believe that this is so overlooked in the homeless space, especially in Los Angeles. Everybody's like housing, housing, housing. You can't keep people in housing unless you teach them a skill that creates autonomy.
yeah.
And because people are looking at her and saying, like, well, how quickly can they then self-sustain? And I said, that's the wrong question. The question is, how much money is it going to cost us if we don't do this? And can we do a
Mm,
sliding scale program that we say somebody like that, if we have to house them, is $30,000 for 1 year, then maybe 20,000 the next, and then 10,000 for the following, and then they're fully weaned. But people don't have an understanding of that. So for me, this is really important, because I feel that women that are experiencing homelessness are 10 times worse off than men. Not to say that that one is better than the other, but a woman living on the streets is definitely in permanent danger. And
yes,
if I can
yes,
contribute in whatever way I can, I'll
yeah.
be happy to do that, because that is impact driven in
Mm.
whatever capacity.
Now, Beata, I'm going to leave all of your contact details in the show notes of the podcast, but I'm really curious, is someone listening to this, or an entrepreneur listening to this, um, uh, what is like the ideal entrepreneur fit for you? Like, if there's someone listening to this that's an impact driven organization, or someone that has an impact driven idea, or how would you describe like your ideal prospect, if you like, or ideal client?
Yeah, my ideal prospect is somebody who has an existing business
Yeah,
and who's experiencing kind of a little bit like an infinity loop, right? So sometimes it's better and sometimes it's not so good, sometimes it's better and sometimes not so good. And they really want to get to the point where they want to break through that cycle. And they
yeah,
really want to automate the business and figure out why this business doesn't grow. And it's for one out of five reasons. And it's either the offer is not right, the idea is not clearly identified, the team's not working, the systems are not there, or you as a leader suck. And
yeah.
somebody who's really very well now, very often the case.
That's right.
And so we need to look at this from these angles. So somebody who knows something's not aligned and they want to align it once and for all because they really want to grow the business, make themselves obsolete, or potentially set it up for an acquisition. That's really somebody I love working with, because then we can brainstorm and we can work on different pieces, and over a period of 6 months or 12 months, really making an impact in double numbers.
Yeah, I love talking to you.
Don't tell me it's over, Peter.
It has to be, unfortunately.
Oh,
I could talk to you all morning for me, or all evening for you. Each time I talk to you, there's
truly.
a fresh there's fresh insights in it. I really enjoy it. I'll put your contact details in the show notes for people that would like to reach out for you. But for the time being, I just wanted to thank you for being a guest on Growth Tales.
Thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure to talk to you.